Welcome to the crypto trading channel. My name is Stu. Well, guys, Bitcoin once again playing with the emotions of traders, but when we really dissect the price action, nothing all too crazy is actually happening. And I personally welcome this volatility with open arms, and this may actually come as a shock to some of you, but I'm even currently riding a bit of a long position on Bitcoin. I feel a little bit guilty about that since I love being bearish recently. But those of you guys in my Telegram group got my warning that we had a confirmed bullish pivot and that I was looking for a STUBER support retest to get myself into a nice scalp entry. This does not mean that I'm bullish in general, you guys, but a buy level is a buy level, and I'll trade this market either direction. I've already TP'd half of my position at typical STUBER targets, and the remaining half of the position is currently running with a break-even stop, totally risk-free. Worst case scenario for this trade at this point is that I've at least locked in some guaranteed profits from my entry down by the 786, and basically getting stopped on the rest at break even. Best case scenario, the remaining half of my position actually turns into a runner and gets myself into more of a swing position. But basically my reasoning for going long from 66,947 US dollars is just that we had this typical bullish STUBER fib setup on the 5-minute chart, you guys. And by that, I mean, basically we had this microstructure, right? We had our low, we had our lower low. Therefore, this is our confirmed lower high on the trend. We ended up breaking that. So basically just pulling a fib to wherever we end up topping and waiting for a pullback to a 786, and finally ended up getting that, you guys. And yeah, for those of you who are interested in just seeing way more examples of how I'm looking at market structure in general, some of my trade setups, like I said, guys, even this one, this is the one that I laid out this morning. You know, some of my warnings and so on. Be sure to scan the QR code on the screen to gain access to my private Telegram, which will also grant you free unlimited algo bot trading as well, due to our exclusive partnership with Prime Automation. And to top it all off, you guys, Blofin is also currently celebrating this partnership by giving this special promotion to new signups under us until February 20th. So you still got a few days to take advantage of that. So if this amazing free deal interests you, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen and get into my VIP channel there, you guys. But yeah, like I said, just looking at this for what it is, it's very possible the remaining half of my position gets stopped at break even. That happens quite often on these setups, but I always like to pay myself along the way. And that's the beauty of Fibonacci setups, right? Is that I have my entries, I have my invalidations, I have my take profit levels. And from there, if it turns into a runner, fantastic, right? But if it doesn't, at least I have locked in some profits. As I mentioned, I am by no means bullish for the macro outlook on crypto right now. Even the midterm, it's still basically the bulls have a lot of work they need to do to prove to me anyways that we are actually getting some sort of recovery, because as it looks right now on the 4-hour, really nothing has changed. We have not broke my lower high at 77K. We only got within about $5,000 of that level. So not even close to actually breaking the downtrend, while a lot of people are celebrating that the bottom is in. I just think it's premature. And I mean, to be fair, it could be, right? It's absolutely possible that we set a new bottom at, you know, just below 60K there. Maybe that is all that the bears had in store. It's just, I don't want to celebrate too early. I would rather wait until the trend proves that it is going to break the downtrend, and then start longing pullbacks after that more aggressively. So obviously I'm still okay to trade either direction. Just as far as how I feel about the market from the mid to long term, I still just think that the bulls have a ton of work to do. And just, you know, another example is just looking at the 4-hour chart here since my stream yesterday. Not a ton has changed, but just as far as the microstructure, we did end up getting a change, right? Just the fact that yesterday when I streamed, I had mentioned we had that low, we had this lower low, therefore we had a confirmed lower high on the immediate trend up here. And notice where we ended up. I think during my stream, we were somewhere in this general area. I could be wrong, but it was somewhere in there. But I was basically saying that, you know, if this trend is going to continue, that this would be the lower high that I wouldn't really expect us to get above. And even if we did, we have so many more resistance levels. And that's really my big problem with Bitcoin and crypto as a whole right now, is just since we've had such a strong downtrend for the last 4 months or so, just even when we break these levels, you know, if we set bullish structure on a 5 minute, then we still have to zoom out to the 15 minute. There's more resistance. And from there, we can zoom out to the 4 hour. There's more resistance. Zoom out to the weekly. There's more resistance. So that's one thing that the bears have done, is obviously creating a bunch of structure to the downside for the last several months. So that is something to consider. But just looking at how this micro 4 hour trend has changed since yesterday's stream, is that since we had this low and this confirmed lower high, we have actually today set a new lower low here. Therefore, the highest point between the two is where I have my yellow line right here. And that is currently sitting at about 69.2K. That is basically my micro lower high on this 4 hour trend. And I shouldn't even say the trend, because like I said, I mean, the main lower high on the 4 hour trend is way up at 77K still. But obviously we get smaller ranges inside bigger ranges. And just for the immediate time frame, this is kind of the structure that I'm looking at. So that being said, as far as zooming in and looking at these smaller ranges basically inside the main range, is that obviously, as I mentioned yesterday, we did have a bullish pivot here just because we had this low, lower low, highest point between the two right here, and we ended up breaking that, right? So at that point, it is possible that we get some sort of a bullish setup pulling a fib from that confirmed bullish pivot point. And notice we've actually come very close to testing the 786 in that sense. I don't necessarily think this is going to hold long term. It's absolutely possible, right? The setup is there that we could see a bounce there. It's just that since we've already pulled back so far into the bigger range, I just can't help but feel like eventually we're going to test this 786, 886 fib pocket, or maybe even our swing fail liquidity grab zone, which that could go all the way down to about 58K. So we're definitely not in the clear yet. But I also don't think all hope is lost, right? Just like I was mentioning with the weekly, I mean, the weekly looks really bad, right? As I said, when you can really zoom out and just find more resistance, and the weekly is a perfect example. Is just look how gross this structure is. This is basically where we lost our low, confirming a new lower high there on the weekly at about 98K. So that's obviously a far ways away from now. There would be plenty of opportunities for the long side as well as the short side to end up getting a proper bounce and work our way back up to that level. It's just that, if and when we end up retesting resistance levels in a downtrend, we really need to pay respect to those resistance levels rather than FOMOing with leverage into resistance. If anything, maybe consider, if you're in a nice long position, start taking profits, or maybe even taking a hedge short position, or looking for short opportunities in general at those resistance levels. But I'm not setting any blind orders or anything like that just because it's so far away, obviously, but just something to keep in mind. And that goes for every time frame, whether it's the weekly, the 4 hourly, the 1 hourly, 15 minute, 5 minute, whatever. If you're in a downtrend, you need to at least respect resistance, right? Just don't totally ignore it. At least consider it, right? Just like if we're in an uptrend setting higher highs, when we get down to a confirmed higher low, that's where we need to respect support, right? But obviously the last several months have been quite bearish when it comes to structure. So really wouldn't, I'm still favoring the downside just because the trend is your friend until the end. But yeah, a buy level is still a buy level. That's why I took this long, but I'm treating it more as a scalp. I mean, it is just a 5 minute anyways, but yeah, it was a beautiful setup. Just, very systematic, right? No emotions attached. Just, hey, here's the setup. Here is where my buy levels start. Basically, I only got my first entry out of 4, but you know what? I will take it. All profits are good profits, right? So, and guys, for those of you who are here with me, those of you guys who appreciate that there's no BS here, we're just kind of looking at the charts for what they are and trading the charts for what they are. Do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. But yeah, that's basically how Bitcoin looks. Another one I want to talk about, just because I mentioned hype yesterday, actually 2 streams ago, I had mentioned this setup. And this is another STUBER setup where, even though it never turned into a parabolic move, we at least got a beautiful setup that we ended up coming down into the 786, 886, ended up hitting some, well, at least the first target. And then when we ended up losing some structure here, we obviously went back to the downside. That being said, as far as that Stuber goes, technically hasn't been invalidated yet. Like I said in yesterday's stream, I already had my stop loss at break even on that guy. Just took small profits at my first target, basically. But as it stands right now, I mean, it's not like we broke the 115 yet. And actually, something else that I want to talk about with this is when I did first mention this setup, I had also mentioned, guys, this would have been a few days ago. But basically, I had mentioned that even if we end up losing and invalidating this trade setup, technically there's another slightly bigger Stuber if I just pull from the bottom of the range. Unfortunately, sometimes just how structure forms, you get two setups that are very similar, very close in size and everything. And I mean, technically, this is where the swing began. So yeah, as far as the microstructure, just because, I mean, just how it formed, right? We had this as our high, this is our higher high. That was our confirmed higher low. But if we end up losing that, which we did, that's where we need to look at, well, where did this bullish swing start? And that was from down here. And if we have that fib pull from where the swing started to where we have topped so far, notice where, even though we pushed a little bit lower this time, notice where we ended up just getting a bit of a reaction so far. Obviously, it's still early to say what'll happen. I'm actually not in a position on this one. I never even saw this until a few minutes ago, basically. But it hasn't actually hit the first target yet. So technically it is still valid. Still nice to see that we got a bit of a reaction off the 786. Nothing crazy yet, but we're going to have to see. And realistically, it's probably going to depend largely on what Bitcoin does, right? If Bitcoin actually does continue staircasing to the upside, then I'd expect altcoins to do nice as well. But if Bitcoin, you know, if that's all that she wrote, because, hey, we are finding resistance, let's say from where we got this big little plunge to the downside from, you know, at that point, it's very possible that we are getting rejected and we're going to set new lows. So we're going to have to see. If we end up breaking a little bit higher, notice I do have a 15-minute lower high resistance level here. If I zoom out to the 15-minute, you can obviously see it more clearly. Let's just delete that guy. But basically looking at the structure here for what it is on the 15, we had a low here. We have a lower low here. That confirms our highest point between the two as our confirmed lower high on this 15-minute trend. So that's actually a very clean one. So if we end up getting a bounce, obviously there's a lot of what ifs, but if we end up getting a bounce there, I would basically expect that Bitcoin could find some resistance, basically starting around 68.6K. And that resistance would run all the way up to about 69.7K. And just like I was talking about earlier, you guys, unfortunately, the bears have done an excellent job of creating a bunch of resistance along the way. So even if we end up smashing through that, obviously we have just some very clean resistance levels. Basically, if we ended up invalidating this 15-minute one, honestly, I wouldn't give all too much credit to this guy right here just because it's another random swing point. I would more so be looking at where the swing began. So I'd be looking at pulling a fib from here, basically. And that's basically 71K. Is that? No, that's actually, it would be that guy, basically. Or wait, even higher. Okay, it's actually where we ended up getting rejected on the 4 hour. That's where that level is. Like I said, if I pull a fib from our current 4 hour, our little range inside the bigger range, that's basically where that high is pulled from there. So looking something like that. So yeah, I think those are a couple of important pivotal levels, basically, if we end up climbing higher, right? We're going to have to see what happens if we end up basically setting a new lower low. So let's even go to the 5-minute here. Let's erase some fibs here. Let's say we end up pushing to the downside and we end up even obviously I would get stopped at break even on the remaining half of my position in that case. But if we end up setting a new low, so we have our low here, and let's just pretend, obviously a lot of what ifs between now and then, but let's just say we set another low like that. In that case, I would be looking at pulling a bearish fib from the highest point between the two, which currently would put us right here. So obviously it depends how it forms, right? Just basically as if And when we end up breaking those lows, I would just be chasing the price with this fib pull basically and looking for a retrace of and a retest of resistance to look for some new short opportunities basically. But yeah, like I said, right now, I mean, I still have part of my short running from 89.9K. So it's not like I don't have any short exposure. Also, I got some algo bots that are currently in short positions, also some in long positions. And now I have my own long position. So I've got a lot of positions open right now. But yeah, that may actually shock some of you guys that I've actually swung at a long position and it actually worked out. So, you know, no complaints there. Like I said, I just welcome the volatility no matter which way it's going. So, can I talk about how I manage my bots? Basically, I don't have anything up right now, but one thing that I've been doing with my bots is basically, so typically speaking, algo bots, they will go through good phases and bad phases, you know, in sideways chops. Sometimes they'll get chopped up a little bit. They will have drawback periods, but over time, they generally, at least most of them, especially if you look at their backtesting data and how they've performed since launch and all that sort of thing, generally speaking, they will trend to the upside over time. So just to kind of get a broader basket rather than just focusing on a couple, I actually currently have 30, I think I have 30 algo bots running right now. Just running them with about 5 to 8% of that account's portfolio basically on the position sizing. And most of them are just at 2x leverage. So keeping the position small, but keeping plenty of them running basically, and they're just constantly taking trades basically. So but yeah, I'm a big fan of just having a big basket egg of a basket of eggs, you know, just multiple bots running together rather than just focusing on one. I kind of just want an overall average of how they perform kind of a thing. So yeah, like I said, I have about 30 running at 2 or 3x leverage right now. BlackRock will blast the lows with leverage. Absolutely possible. We will obviously have to see what happens. I never put too much focus on what any of those bigger players are doing. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's possible that it really actually, guys, in my opinion, it really depends what retail does. Right? Because at this point, we see retail's building long positions again, and we've seen that we've been kind of rolling over here. So if retail starts building short positions, then I would basically assume that bigger players such as BlackRock are going to use that liquidity. And if retail starts building shorts heavily, that's when I think we would actually push to the upside. Whereas if retail starts basically longing, just longing with FOMO, that's where they are going to use that liquidity and push the price further to the downside. So we'll have to see what happens with that. Hurley also took a long, but entry is not as good as mine. Well, is it in a profit? Have you locked anything in? Is your risk off the table? If all those things are a go, then it's a good position to be in either way, in my opinion. Yeah. Anyways, guys, I think that's about all I really wanted to go over today. Just a quick market update. Like I said, just a few things on the lower time frames kind of jumping out at me today. So one last time, if you do appreciate these market updates, these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And just as a reminder for those of you who are interested in joining my private Telegram channel, as well as wanting free access to unlimited algo bot trading through Prime Automation, plus this special promo from Blowfin for new signups up until February 20th. Like I said, a few days left there. Do yourselves a favor and get in my Telegram channel by scanning the QR code on the screen or clicking the link in the description down below. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Thank you so much for watching once again. Catch you on the next one. Peace out.